Hello and welcome to this short video on factorizing, and in particular factorizing two terms. So when there's two terms in the question. So just to explain, in factorizing questions, when you're asked to factorize, you could be asked to factorize a question that has two terms, three terms, or four terms. And understanding the difference between the different techniques of how to do it is really key. And the first thing you do is you look at how many terms are in the question. So let's take a look at this question that came up in 2015's higher level junior cert maths paper. And it says, factorize 5x minus 15 and 6 minus 2x. So there's two questions to do there, and they've divided up the boxes so that it clearly shows you that there's two different questions to do. There's this one and then there's this one. So how many terms does this first question have? It has, of course, two terms, and of course this one has two terms as well. So there's a particular method to do factorizing when it comes to expressions that have two terms in them, and the steps are here. Let's take a look at this first one, this 5x minus 15 first. Okay, now what's step one? Okay, step one is we have to find a common number and or a common letter. We'll worry about that second bit in a minute, but let's just find a common number first. What number will go into 5 and go into 15? Yes, you guessed it, it's 5. And a common letter, and or a common letter. It isn't always both, but let's have a look. X is here, is it here? No, and there's no letters in common. So we just have a common number, and that's okay, that'll do us. We have a common number. What's step 2? Write this down, yeah, I've done that, beside a pair of brackets. Okay, so let's put down a big pair of brackets there and there. The brackets you should be able to fit two things in here now in a minute. And step 3, ask yourself, this is where you have to think, this is where you have to use your brain for a moment. Ask yourself, what would this number, right, when I mean this number, I mean the number that we figured out was common. What would this number here, what would it need to multiply by to recreate the original expression? Now, the original expression was this one. So what does 5 need to multiply by to recreate 5x minus 15? Well, let's see. 5 by what gives me 5x? Well, 1x, isn't it? 5 by 1x gives me 5x. And 5 by what gives me minus 15? By minus 3. And that's it. That's the answer. Let's try it on this question. Let's look for a common number first. Is there a common number? Is there a number that can go into both of those numbers, 6 and 2? Is there a number that will divide into both? Yeah, 2. 2 will divide into both, so we put 2 down. And of course then we put beside big brackets. Yeah, write this number beside a pair of brackets. Lovely. Now ask yourself, what would 2 have to multiply by to recreate the original expression? What would 2 need to multiply by to make 6? Well, it would need to multiply by 3. Okay. And what would 2 need to multiply by to make minus 2x? Well, it would need to be minus 2 by what gives me 2? 1. 2 by what gives me 2? X. And that's the answer. Okay? Now, better plug in my battery before it goes dead. There we go. Now, next few questions. Let's try that again. And let's look at some slightly harder ones because they've got x squareds and x cubes and all the rest of it. but it's still the same method. So let's take a look at this first one over here. First of all, you see it's got two terms, one term, two terms. It's got two terms, so we know that we're doing the same method that I just did. And let's try and do this first one here. Right, find a common number. Right, what number will go into 3 and into 9? Yeah, it's 3. Did that. Write this number down beside a pair of brackets. Okay, but put in my brackets. Step 3, ask yourself, what would this number need to multiply by to recreate the original expression? To recreate 3x squared minus 9x cubed. Let's think about this. This is the hard bit of these questions, so take your time. 3 by what gives me 3x squared? Well, 3 by 1 will give me the 3 part, and 3 by 1x squared will give me 3x squared. 3 by what will give me minus 9? Well, minus 3. And 3 by what? It would have to be an x cubed. See what I did? That's the answer. Okay? Try this second one. Is there a common number in 4 and 12? Is there a number that will divide into both 4 and into 12? Oh yeah, there is. There's 2. We have to try and find the biggest common number. Right, is there a number bigger than 2 that will go into 4 and into 12? Yes, 4 will divide into both 4 and 12. So 4 is the number that we write there. Now, is there a common letter in here? Well, let's take a look. There is, I'll use green. There's an X here. Now, there's no X here. And there's a Y cubed here and a Y squared here. So Y is definitely common. But is there even bigger thing common? Y squared. Because if there's a Y squared here and a Y cubed here, it means that there's at least a Y squared in both of them. So I do have a common number and a common letter for this one. So now I put down my two big brackets. Yeah. And I ask myself, what do I need to multiply this term here, this 4y squared? What will I need to multiply this by to recreate this original expression? Let's see. 4 by 1 will give me the 4. And y squared by what gives me xy cubed? Well, I need to have an x in there. And I'll need to have another y. Because y squared by y, then I'll have y cubed. There's a plus. 4 by what gives me 12? By 3. And y squared by what gives me y squared? Nothing. I don't need to put anything else in. 4y squared by 3 would give me 12y squared. That's my answer. And now let's try the last one. Again, let's go through the steps. I've just disappeared them there because we need a bit of space. What's the common number? What number will divide into both 6 and into 3? Yeah, 3. Is there a common letter? Yes, there is. A is in both of them. So we put down A. Put our big brackets. Ask ourselves, what does this have to multiply by in here? And we'll need to have two things in here. There's always two things in there. What will it have to multiply in there to recreate the original expression? Well, 3 by what gives me 6? Well, 2. And A by what gives me just A. I just want an A. I don't need another A here. Because 3 by 2 gives me 6, and A by A would give me A squared. And I don't have an A squared in the question. It's just A. So I don't need that A there. That A is gone. 3A by 2 gives me 6A. That's enough. And 3A by what would give me plus 3? Well, 3 by 1 gives me 3, doesn't it? And A by what gives me AN? N. And that's my answer. Okay, it's over to you now to try some of these questions. I'm going to zoom out. I'm going to ask you to pause the video in a moment. Before we do that, let's get these steps up for you so that you can have them when you're doing this question. Let's put them there, and let's control copy that, and let's move it down here and insert it maybe there. Okay, yeah. Okay, there are the questions, 3 questions for you to try. Pause the video, try those questions, and when you have the 3 of them done, play the video and I'll work through the solutions. So you're going to need to have an empty page, a blank page and a pen, and you've got the steps here lined up for you. Now if you do it using a different method, so if you use it using a dividing method to see what the expression terms that go into the brackets are, that's fine too. If you use a different method, that's okay. They are the questions. You can use whatever method you have learned, but they are 3 questions for you to try. I'm going to use my method here in a moment to go through the answers, but you try and use whatever method you want. Okay, pause the video, try the 3 questions. When you're finished, press play again on the video. So pause now. Okay, I hope you gave the 3 of those a go, attempt on by yourself, and we're going to work through the answers now. So let's divide up that page. Let's take a look at the first one. Is there a common number? Yes, there is. 2 will divide into both of those, so I write down 2. Is there a common letter? Yes, there is. Y is in both of them, so 2y. Write that beside a pair of big brackets. And now ask yourself, what will 2 have to multiply by to give me 4? Well, it would have to multiply by 2. And what would y have to multiply by to give me x cubed y? Well, it would have to multiply by x cubed. Now, on to the next one. 2 by what gives me minus 6? Minus 3. And y by what leaves it as just y? Well, I don't need another y in there, do I? Because y by y would mean this would have to be y squared, and it isn't. So that's my answer there. On to this next one. Is there a common number? Yes, there is. 3 goes into both of those. Is there a common letter? Yes, there is. I can see an x and an x squared. So, in other words, x is in both of those. Brackets. 3 by what gives me 3? 1. X by what gives me ax squared? Well, I need to have an a in here, and I'd also need to have another x, because x by x gives me x squared. Now, on to the next one. 3 by what gives me minus 12? Well, it would need to be minus 4. And x by what would give me 12x? That's it. 3x by minus 4 would give me minus 12x. So there's my answer for that one. And on to the last one. What goes into both of these? There's a few different numbers, isn't there? There's a few different common numbers. I could use 2. No, I can't. Because there's a bigger common number. Is it 7? Yeah, 7 goes into 14 and into 28. But there's a bigger common number. 14 goes into both of those numbers. So 14 is my common number. What's the common letter? Is there a common letter? I see an x squared here, and I see a normal x here. So our common letter is x. Brackets. 14 by what gives me 14? 1. And x by what gives me x squared? I need to have another x. Because 14x by 1x gives me 14x squared. Now, 14 by what gives me plus 28? 2. And x by what gives me ax? Just a. Now, you take a look at that, and if you want, actually multiply it out in your head and see if you end up with the original expression, because that's what you want. Now, you don't actually multiply it out. You just see in your head. 14x by 1x gives me 14x squared, yeah. 14x by 2a gives me 28x, yeah, I'm happy. And that's those questions. I hope you managed to get the 3 of those done, and I hope you got them right. And if not, maybe go over them again and see where you went wrong. Okay, see you in the next video.